Cancer. I had a breast cancer diagnosed 6 years ago. I had a lump biopsy done then. And then I fled and started to pursue other ways of handling the problem. I had a local recurrence. I've had another lump since then, which I've had removed. And I am still maintaining my health with a careful selection of remedies and methods that I have been able to discover for myself. Some of those I get through a doctor, and some of them I get through a priest. Many of them I discover within myself. So I suppose I have had what would be considered to be an active cancer for 6 years, but I've had the best 6 years I've ever had. So the business of finding a healing path for oneself, the business of setting out on that journey is terrific. It's terrific. I recommend it to anybody.
If health is the absence of disease, then Penny Bron is ill. She has had an active cancer for 6 years. But as an acupuncturist and founder member of the Bristol Cancer Health Centre, Penny sees illness and health as part of living. She works as a guide, helping people to see their disease as an important part of life's experience.
Well, we want to break it all up into bite-sized pieces and neat little compartments, and these people are sick and these people are well, and this is beautiful and this is ugly. But it's ironic that we want to do that intellectually, but our experience of the world is not like that. I mean, when we go out and look at the woods, the old trees with the knobbledy-gnarly bits on them that are growing all over the place are absolutely beautiful. I mean, they are part of the beauty of the woods. So if they all grew with uniform size and strength and loveliness and perfection and so on, they wouldn't be as nice. And some diseased leaves are very pretty. So that we actually get used in nature to accepting and tolerating the whole business of change and decay. But we are very intolerant of it in ourselves. We are terrified of change and decay in ourselves. So we live as if that's not happening to us, as if we were not getting older and greyer and a little bit deaf and a little bit slow.
I suddenly started getting these blackouts. And in fact, I passed out completely. And other times I just completely forgot whom I was talking to, and I had these very embarrassing blanks. And then I started, I had to go to the doctor.
A year ago, John Rowley was operated on for cancer at the Charing Cross Hospital, and with the help of his wife, Jill, made a good recovery. But it was an enormous effort. Then he heard that he had a heart condition. Exhausted, he prepared for another operation. But at Charing Cross Hospital, Dr. Nixon's cardiac team examined him and took an unusual decision. His heart was failing because of the effort it was asked to make. They decided to treat the way John Rowley went about life, as well as looking after his heart.
Fortunately, this consultant surgeon said, "We've got a super cardiac department here. You would better go along to see them." They had a sort of totally different approach. Their approach was, first of all, get your life sorted out, get yourself sorted out.
As I examine you, let this be an opportunity to practice abdominal breathing, okay? You relax and let me do the work. Thank you. That's excellent. Good. Look upwards for me. Thank you. Just rest the head gently on my hand. That's perfect. On examining you, Mr. Rowley, I find I'm pleased. You still have this abnormal rhythm, which I explained to you before, called atrial fibrillation, which is a very common rhythm and is basically due to an incoordination between the top two chambers of the heart and the bottom of the heart. It's going quite slow. It doesn't need any drastic treatment immediately. And I think
Dr. Williams, the registrar, has medical techniques to correct the mechanical malfunctions of the heart. But there are also less conventional methods used at Charing Cross. A team of skilled volunteers, masseurs, hypnotherapists, remedial gymnasts, counsellors, and a dance therapist work on the interplay between the patient's mind and body. If the two are not at odds, then the person's own powers of recuperation will help the work of the doctor.
I don't see you can say the word mind and body separately, quite honestly. They are one. And to treat the heart, as is often referred to, you often hear, come and see this patient has a heart condition or whatever. I think it really is nonsense. I think it's nonsense to skip out the mechanical side of things, obviously. I'd be a fool to say so. The most important part is to listen to the patient. Listen. Each patient has something within them which will help them to get better. That element of hope or what other internal resources they may have.
There's the physical nuts and bolts, nitty-gritty that one has to do, but there's a strong sort of spiritual element in it of reshaping your life and leading your life, as human beings are meant to shape it. And I feel, if I can do that, and I'm sure I can, with help, I'm sure I can, I won't need her. I've had my tummy chopped up. I don't want my chest chopped up. If it has to be, I'll have it. And this was the lovely thing about the doctors here. They said, right, if it is necessary, if your pipes are furred up and you do need a bypass, you'll get one. But try this way first. And I'm certain this way will work. I'm certain of it.
We all have riches inside ourselves. And what we have to do is to teach ourselves to be good listeners. The patient knows inside what he needs to get better. It's a question of listening and tapping that resource. It's a skillful process and one which I think the medical profession aren't taught to do. We are taught to diagnose. Is it disease? Is it not? But to listen to patients is a difficult skill and is the most important thing in order to help someone to help themselves.
A highly experienced masseuse, Claire Maxwell-Hudson, gently coaxes her patients to relax and realize that the body can be a friend.
When I came in as an emergency, I was very ill.
What were you ill with?
Heart failure. I found it very difficult to relax. It's all right for people to say relax, but to actually do it, it's an awful lot of effort, and I didn't have the effort. And Claire arrived one day. She gave me a massage, and I was tight, first of all. That's the only way I can describe it. Didn't understand it. If I'm relaxed, my breathing is so much easier. And if my breathing is good, then it slows down the heart rate, which runs very, very fast. I still hate being ill. I get mad at myself. I suppose really it's like wringing your hands when you're uptight, It's the same sort of thing as
Yes, it's just soothing you down. Really soothes you down and induces a sense of calm. So if you're feeling anxious or tense or can't sleep or anything like that, this will help you to get a feeling of calmness and well-being.
Touch is a mechanism of teaching the patient the difference between relaxed muscles and tense muscles. And most people lack the ability to be able to listen to their body and hear key signs of muscle tension. So it's a means of showing the patient the difference between muscle tension and relaxation. And it's a very warm, it's a very personal, warm thing as well to be touched by a person, especially when you've been labelled as somebody who suffers from a disease or dis-ease, however you prefer to look upon it.
What they didn't tell you at school is that carbon dioxide is a tranquilizer. It's a muscle relaxant. So by washing it all away, you tense yourself up. So if I breathe slowly and calmly and allow my level of carbon dioxide to build up, my muscles are going to relax. And that's a purely chemical reaction. It's nothing psychological. And if I keep on breathing calmly, then I'm likely to be able to think more clearly and concentrate more easily. Because unlike the tranquilizers that the doctors prescribe, carbon dioxide actually allows the circulation of oxygen to flow to your brain more efficiently. So you can not only be more relaxed, but you can also feel more in control.
Dr. Thomas, a retired GP, now uses hypnotherapy to induce a deep physical and mental relaxation, in which the subject's mind will more easily absorb ideas about essential changes needed in their lifestyle.
So the first thing about being a calm person is to breathe calmly. So perhaps you'd like to just practice this by placing a hand over your stomach, the upper part of your abdomen, and the other hand up here, and just seeing if you can make it that the bottom hand moves gently out as you breathe in, and it flattens again as you breathe out, and that there's very little or no movement in your top hand. It helps if you just let the word calm go through your mind as you breathe out. Calm. Calm. That's good. So that you can really feel waves of calmness flowing down to your fingers and toes, taking every bit of tension out of all the muscles, so that if somebody picked up your hand, it would be utterly limp. As I pick up your hand, let it be utterly floppy, and as I drop it, it goes flop, and you become twice as relaxed. As I drop your hand, feel yourself becoming twice as comfortable, twice as calm. Notice how pleasant it is to have relaxed yourself in this way, and as I drop your hand, you go twice as deeply into calmness and tranquility.
Very gently again, move the head around. If you get dizzy, please stop. Other way. And rest. And your shoulders, just move them up and around.
Wolfgang Stanger, a choreographer and dance teacher who works with the physically and mentally disabled, encourages patients at Charing Cross both to express themselves and regain confidence in the ability to use their bodies energetically.
3, 4, other way, 1, thank you, 2, and a 3, and a forward, and a 1, thank you, 2, 3, and 4, gently backwards, and 2, and 3, and stretch one arm up, and the other one, and stretch, and up, that's it, up, thank you, up.
Every time I've watched the dance therapy, here are these people who have been labelled as cardiac cripples or whatever. They're not exerting themselves in a silly fashion. It's more of a social gathering, and I think the self-esteem to see 20 people that have been labelled as cardiac cripples come out pink and bubbling and warm and laughing is a lovely thing.
Now, the other people, you have to decide what mask will go on then. So having now covered the basic shape, what mask do you think should go on? Everybody in the group now, which mask do you think? If I try to get the chap with the beard around your hands. The white mask, please.
Looking up at the man with the beard. Are you looking up at him? Yes.
Anything else? Only if you want to. Have anybody? Can you hold it, everybody?
After separating his patients into small groups, Wolfgang dresses them up. The cloth and masks help them put aside the old label of cardiac cripple so that they can discover and express a new image. He asks them to use their bodies to interpret the state of mind and mood that his music sets.
Just check where I'm in music.
This small artistic success can nudge them to a new, more healthy feeling about themselves. The satisfaction of being creative puts the mind and body back in touch with each other after the trauma of disease.
And rest. Lovely. Good. To stimulate the blood supply is one thing which is very important, and we all have to try to do it. It has been said thousands of years ago. What we are doing is nothing new. But again, to completely only keep it with the exercise. The exercise are in a way safe because people don't mind coming first to exercise. It sounds familiar and it sounds safe. But I think it's much more important for the students to explore different avenues of the exercise itself, first of all, to become creative with the movement itself, and therefore create themselves. It'd be easy for me just to stand there and give instructions, say do that, and that's good for whatever part of the body. But I'm not interested only in the particular physical side of the person. I'm also interested that a person should develop, as I said earlier on, their inner self. So we're dealing with the whole person, not just one aspect of them. The physical side is only one aspect, which of course relates very closely to the, if you want to call it spiritual. If you start stimulating the muscles, you naturally, as you all know, will end up in the brain, so to speak. So it is just the complete person, not just one part of the person.
There's always that fear in the back of the mind that if you push yourself that little bit extra, you might bring on another attack. But having been to these classes, it has done as Wolfgang says, it helps you physically and emotionally and even spiritually, because there has been something lacking, and I found that I can now also find faith again, which I'd lost. So it's helped in that
faith
way
in
as well.
yourself? Something outside?
In myself and in my religion, and it's where, you know, you read about heart attack people dying, it just proves that you don't die because you've had a heart attack. There is life beyond a heart attack, and you can carry on
and
and
it gives
live.
you the courage to live.
And it gives you the courage to carry on and live, yes.
Oh, yeah, now I live.
I have seen for myself the role of hope in bringing them back to a useful and happy existence. There is a gold mine of untapped resources in the patient to get well. A doctor can only do about a third, and that's being generous.
15 years ago, at the Beth Israel Hospital in Boston, Professor Herbert Benson and his team began pioneering research to measure scientifically the effects of relaxation and meditation on the human body.
Let the jaw relax as you breathe out the tension and the worries.
Dr. Margaret Cordial teaches meditation to hypertension patients. What Professor Benson's work has done is to reduce to numbers, to scientific data, one aspect of the mind-body connection. Doctors knew that our bodies responded to stress, but Professor Benson has shown that meditation is not a placebo. It actually reduces blood pressure. He has identified physiological changes that occur in the brain when patients meditate or pray, making science recognize the value of inner mind-body techniques.
What we're saying in behavioral medicine and the use of the relaxation response is that it isn't a substitute for modern medicine, but rather we should use it together with modern medicine There are many diseases. For example, it's estimated that 75% of the disorders that bring patients to doctors aren't well treated by medicine, surgery, or psychiatry. These are either self-limited illnesses or mind-body type effects. The relaxation response has usefulness here because anxiety plays in these 75%, because anxiety very frequently plays a role.
I'm here maybe as a last resort because my vision is going and I'm in constant danger of having a stroke. I inherited my blood pressure from my mother, who died from a cerebrovascular accident when she was 21 years of age.
Patients who have high blood pressure are taught to recognize that it is a physical response to coping with effort, anxiety, and tension. Many of them have been on heavy medication already and have come here to try and learn to control their blood pressure themselves without the use of medicine.
About a year and a half ago, I went to see a gynecologist, the first doctor for a couple of years, who looked at me rather astounded and said, "Your blood pressure is 170 over 114. We're going to give you a kidney IVP and make sure you're not about to go." Because I'm thinking about having a family, I thought it would be a good idea to try and see what I could do about controlling blood pressure. I am on pills now. I've been on pills about a year, but I think there may be some other answers.
There's been a big trend to treat aggressively this thing we call hypertension. There's also this feeling of lack of control and the side effects that many of you have gone to your physicians or nurse practitioners expressing and are told, well, you're going to have to live with it, or you change to another medication and find that you still have other side effects. So it's a very common story that we hear over and over and over again. The other thing is that a lot of you indicate is that you are aware when your blood pressure goes high. It's always called the silent killer, which scares, the bejesus out of most people, and they realize that for many people that they know when their pressure's up and they know when it's down, and that you do have an internal sense. A lot of what we pick up here and we teach you about is becoming aware and being confident to trust your sense about how you're feeling. As I tell people all the time, you're really the best judge of how you're feeling and what you think is best for you.
However much the patients exercise and plan stress out of their lives, they find that if they do not meditate for 20 minutes a day, their blood pressure still remains high.
Under stressful circumstances, our bodies bring forth a reaction which is characterized by a number of physiologic changes. Increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, sweating, a 300 to 400% increase in the amount of blood flow to our muscles. And we have feelings of disquietude, upsettedness. We discovered the relaxation response, or defined the relaxation response in man, about 15 or so years ago, when we first studied transcendental meditation. And we found that people practicing transcendental meditation brought about in their bodies decreased metabolism, decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, stabilization of the amount of blood flow to their muscles, brainwave changes characteristic of peace and tranquility, that is alpha and theta waves. The practices aren't new. They've been in mankind's lore for thousands and thousands of years. It was thought previously that prayer might help at certain levels, for example, spiritual levels, but it probably has no physiologic correlations that are meaningful. What we did with the definition of the relaxation response brought on by prayer and other techniques is to put numbers on it, to these age-old practices, to show that if you think in a certain way, predictable, reproducible physiologic changes occur.
I think for some people, going on the inner journey is the most important thing, and that some people are aware of that from the very beginning. And perhaps these are the people who do seek staging posts along the way, who do go out away from the classic hospital background and look for help. Maybe not. Maybe they stay within the environment of the mechanistic, the body therapy environment and fail. Because after all, we have to ask ourselves why some people are treated superbly by experts and don't get better.
One such case is Maria Martin. She has had surgery to remove large sections of her lungs damaged by a childhood illness. Because of her difficulty in absorbing oxygen, her heart is dangerously enlarged. She has already had 2 strokes and 2 cardiac arrests. Last year, while waiting for a heart and lung transplant, she went on pilgrimage to Lourdes.
Got you on film now. On record.
Every year, 4 million people set out on the journey to Lourdes, the Catholic shrine in the Pyrenees, where miracles of healing are believed to have occurred. Serious disease can be seen as a journey, taking each sufferer on a long and often painful road into darkness. Reflecting this in a real journey, a pilgrimage, often helps by injecting hope and strength. At Victoria Station, Cardinal Hume welcomes the English National Pilgrimage as their leader and spiritual guide.
But I'm going this afternoon by airplane, so get the place ready for you. Okay.
The classic role for the patient in our society is for the patient to be very passive. And now they're not even reacting, they're just meant to be there. And sometimes that can be such a shock to people that they realise that this is perhaps their last opportunity to energise themselves, to start acting, to start performing, to start behaving, to start being who they are. And a lot of those people set out on a pilgrimage. I mean, either by seeking alternative help or by going to counsellors or by trying to gain some meaning out of suffering. That's one way. They might literally go on a physical pilgrimage. And that empowers them. They then stop playing the passive role of patient and they start taking responsibility for being sick in a most positive way, in a way that's not guilt-laden, in a way that is making them stronger all the time.
Soul-destroying, having to rely upon others, doing chores for one and becoming incapacitated and becoming dependent upon other people. That's very hard to accept. So I've been through all the sorry for oneself stages.
Where did you find the answer for that?
Prayer.
Is one of your main, in a sense, stresses at the moment the fact that you're hoping to have a transplant?
Yes.
That it may or may not come?
Yes.
How do you think that spiritual healing and what Lourdes is involved in complements orthodox medicine?
Oh, I think it does enormously. I rely upon my consultants, then I also rely upon God, and this is why I'm coming to Lourdes again. I think one doesn't complement the other.
A lot of people would say that they're coming to Lourdes because they're hoping for some kind of cure from their sickness.
No, I don't look at it in that respect. I don't expect a cure. I don't expect to be healed, but I would like to be able to, instead, be able to accept, to come to terms with my own disability, handicaps, and accept my lot. That's what I would like more than anything else.
And when we see somebody living with their mortality, living with their weaknesses, living with the fact they're not perfect, bearing suffering, this is sometimes such an awesome sight because it evokes in us an understanding of our own inability to do this. Sometimes we just can't actually bear to be near those people.
Madeline, have you been on the pilgrimage before?
Yes, many times.
Why are you coming again this time?
Because I love Our Lady.
How long have you been ill for now?
This time around 10 years. But before that I was blind. In 1969 I came here and I got some of my sight back.
How come?
I don't know. Our Lady just decided to pull the muscles right when they threw the water into my eyes. And it all came right. And then I was able to see the conker blossom, which is one of the most wonderful sights in Lourdes. You know?
Are you hoping for a repeat of the same kind of thing?
No, I don't want anything.
The train journey is like a kind of parable of the whole of life, setting off on this great journey, and they're full of expectation, they're full of hope, and everybody goes there with a different expectation and a different hope. But I believe that each person on that train is carrying, some of them a very obvious burden in the sense of the sick, and then a lot of them are carrying their secret burdens, a sadness, an anxiety, a worry about somebody at home. So everybody is going on pilgrimage to this holy place, which is Lourdes, in order to find the kind of help which they need to carry on in their journey through life.
The centre of the pilgrimage is the grotto, a shallow cave beside the river Gave, where Bernadette, a young shepherd girl, believed she had had 18 visions of the Virgin Mary in 1858. Inside it, she uncovered a small mountain spring that she was instructed to wash in. Maria Martin made it her first point of call after arriving at Lourdes.
I go there because I know that it is a holy place, because I believe that the Virgin Mary appeared to Bernadette, and to be in a holy place is significant. I go there, first of all, I think, to try to be quiet, to find space, to find peace, and I think to let my mind dwell on the things that I believe really matter, and I hope that that will stir my heart to respond in some manner.
Father Rosendo has multiple sclerosis. He leaves prayers and messages from friends and parishioners.
Do you know you're in Lourdes? Do you know why you're in Lourdes? Have you been down to the grotto? How long have you been ill for?
Long time.
Yes. What have you got?
MS. Multiple sclerosis.
Do you know why people come to Lourdes?
I'm not believing that it's much hard to change to do. I have to do certain things.
Do you believe in miracles?
No.
No.
Every afternoon, the Mass of the Blessed Sacrament is held. The pilgrims form a procession from the grotto to the basilica. They gather in the great square before the basilica, where the host will be presented to the sick. It will be their moment of hope, the moment when many of the miraculous cures have taken place at this hospital of last resort.
Lord, that I may walk. Lord, that I may walk.
You bless the sick who were brought to you.
Lord, that I may walk. Lord, that I may walk.
You say to each one of us, come, follow me.
Lord, that I may walk. Lord, that I may walk.
Sorrows and sufferings of men, in mourning, and in the way of justice.
The host is presented. The moment has passed.
Miracles are a very small part of Lourdes, in my opinion. And I say that because I think that the work that is done by our doctors and our nurses in hospitals, this is wonderful work, and the healing that goes on there is done under the providence of God. I mean, he's using the doctor, he's using the nurses, he's using all the natural things that go on in a hospital. And it's very important to remember that. And if the bone, which was broken, suddenly comes together because somebody has waved a blessing over it, and we call that a miracle, that's rare.
Whatever technique we use, we are just looking for something to do while we get better. In a way that might be true. After all, we have a bone set and some very clever person puts those two bits together again. And then we all sit around with our fingers crossed waiting for the healing to take place. So the healing comes from within that person. It doesn't actually come from the skill of the person who set the bone, although we need him. He's part of the process, but he too recognizes that at some point or another, that person takes over.
At the Medical Bureau, Dr. Marjapan heads the team that investigates all reported cures.
Nous avons reconnu au moins 3000 guérisons, reconnues certaines, définitives et inexplicables, par des moyens différents, puisque la médecine n'était pas la même il y a 100 ans que maintenant, mais nous avons reconnu au moins 3000. Et parmi ces 3000, 64 seulement ont été reconnues miraculeuses par l'Église.
On the 15th of May 1952, Alice Couteau was instantaneously cured after 3 years of multiple sclerosis. 4 years later, she was still healthy. It was recognized by the Church as a miracle.
Et Lourdes est devenue maintenant comme le haut lieu charismatique de guérison qui a été proposé au monde entier, si vous voulez. Mais c'était vrai ceci surtout à une époque où la médecine ne pouvait pas offrir, n'avait pas à sa disposition les moyens de traiter ces personnes. Actuellement, j'ai l'impression qu'il y a un reflux, dans un autre sens, et la médecine prenant en charge de plus en plus la vie ou la survie des gens, il y a infiniment moins de personnes qui viennent pour être guéries à Lourdes qu'il n'y en avait il y a 50 ou 100 ans.
Originally, Lourdes was not a place of miracles. Bernadette simply prayed there and received messages about repentance, prayer and love. Only when the railway reached Lourdes did popular demand make it a shrine where God's hand reached out especially to the sick.
Jesus' healing miracles are very interesting little cameos for us to look at as to what's going on in a healing situation. And there were times when Jesus went into the whole kind of mechanistic bit. He took up a bit of earth and he mixed a little paste and he applied it to the eyelids, you know. So he was doing something that perhaps with his fantastic perception he sensed that that patient needed. But at another time he would just look at the patient and say, your sins are forgiven you. So he knew that actually that's what that patient really needed, was forgiveness. And I think there are a lot of people like that. They need to be forgiven. I mean, not just by others. They need to forgive themselves.
I've had what would be described as a very large fix, and I feel absolutely marvellous.
What's it going to be like when you have to get back home and carry on as you carried on before?
Very difficult, because you need the strength. The pilgrimage, like I said before, starts today. It didn't start last week. It starts when you leave, and then you have to draw on the strength that you gained from this week to live the next year or 2 years or whatever as best you can. So you've got to draw on that, and the pilgrimage is starting now.
What are you feeling? Are you changed? Are you better?
Physically, I feel I've improved enormously from the physical condition I was in on the outward journey. Mentally, I feel more relaxed, more calm. I've come to terms with the problems I mentioned before of acceptance. I don't mean that in a fatalistic way. That's not what I have in mind at all. It's as an independent and very strong-willed person, coming to terms with being incapacitated and having to accept this fact and accept it graciously. And accept also that if it's God's will that I should be cured, then I shall be cured. If not, what I prayed for, particularly in Lourdes, was for help. And if that was not to be, then teach me how to be sick, how to be ill, how to accept it graciously.
Sickness is sometimes the anxiety of being alive, and the flip side of that coin is the fear of dying. So our real attachment is to being here, our real attachment is to staying alive, and disease is the threat to you that you might be taken away before you've finished, before you've got your final act together.
Okay, love, we'll get you up now. On the back leg, one end of the back. Okay, you've got it. All right, lovely.
Now she's all right.
That's
us finished, Bill. Yes, she's on yours. Bye.
Why should it happen to me? I was so angry. I still, at times, feel resentful that I'm not quite over the hill yet. And there's so much I want to do, so much I would like to do and to achieve. And I feel the time is running out. It's like looking at an hourglass and watching the sand running through.
racing against the clock to achieve before it's too late?
I have tried to explore ways in which I can get in touch with what I would call my intuitive self or my creative self. The side of me that is not playing roles in this world, that is not the mother, the sister, the daughter, the acupuncturist, just the side of me that exists independently of all those things. And I think what I'm trying to get in touch with is the kingdom of heaven within you. I think that's what that phrase means, that we have these capacities, that we do in fact carry around within us the capacity to resolve all of our problems. And that's saying an awful lot, and I know that, but I believed that I had the capacity to resolve the crisis of having cancer. And so what I needed was to experiment with techniques that would get me in touch with that side of myself, because I had lost touch with that side of myself, and that's why I was sick. So I've used techniques like meditation and visualization, but also very simple techniques like not working all the time. I mean, very simple techniques like allowing myself the luxury of pottering around with watercolors, allowing myself time to be rather than to do. And I think that for anybody, just to put themselves into a being existence for a while is very healing. I think it is actually healing. I mean, Wordsworth says, doesn't he, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. So I have tried to reconnect with those powers. I think maybe that's what those people are doing with their torchlit processions. In fact, getting in touch in that way.
Maria Martin has since been told that she could not survive a heart and lung transplant operation. She went to Lourdes again this spring and says that it has helped her to accept her deepening crisis.